Let me tell you a story that started with silence and ended with a slammed door no one saw coming. The takeout bag was still warm when I saw it. One of those receipts printed with just enough detail to break a man. 2 entrees, 1 dessert. Wine. For 2. She had told me she was going to her sister's. But unless her sister had suddenly turned into a guy named Lucas, who left a flirty message on the back. Next time. Just you and me. No curfew face-blowing a kiss. Then something was off. I hadn't planned on being home that night. I was supposed to be out of town for work, but the meeting got canceled. I didn't text her to say I was coming back. I wish I could say it was some kind of clever trap, but really, I was just tired. Of travel. Of pretending we were still us. I dropped my bag and stood there in the kitchen, just staring at the counter. And then I saw it. Not just the receipt, but the ring. Mine. On my finger. Still there. Still loyal. I slid it off. Slowly. Like peeling away the last piece of denial. I placed it next to the wine-stained receipt. It looked too clean. Too sincere. The door clicked open 15 minutes later. She waltzed in like she'd won the lottery, laughing at something someone texted her, tapping on her phone. She didn't see me right away. She didn't even look toward the counter. She walked straight into the bedroom and shut the door behind her. And that's when I realized something terrifying. She wasn't hiding anything anymore, because she thought I'd already given up. But I hadn't. Not yet. And what I did next, it flipped everything upside down. And it wasn't part of anyone's plan. She stayed in that room for a while. I heard the thump of her heels being kicked off, the faint jingle of earrings landing in the trinket bowl I bought her last Christmas. That bowl meant something to me, hand-painted, took 2 weeks to ship. I doubt she remembers. I stood by the front door, listening, unsure whether to say anything. But that's the thing. How do you start a conversation that ends everything? I didn't want to shout. I didn't want some dramatic screaming match. I just wanted her to see me, really see me. But she never even noticed I was there. Not until she walked into the kitchen for a bottle of water, humming something that wasn't ours. Her hand reached toward the fridge, but froze midair when her eyes caught the ring. I watched from the hallway as her entire body stiffened. It was surreal, like a movie freeze frame. She picked it up, looked at it, turned it over in her fingers like it was some mysterious object she couldn't identify. Then she looked around. Not with guilt. Not with sadness. With confusion. Like she'd forgotten I was still capable of leaving. "Daryl?" she called out, hesitant. I didn't answer. I just stepped outside, quietly, and sat in my car parked across the street. From the window, I saw her pacing. She didn't cry. She didn't call. She just stood there staring at the counter like the granite could explain everything. And then her phone rang. She picked it up fast. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw the smile return. And just like that, I vanished again from her mind. It was in that moment I knew I wasn't part of her life anymore. I was a background actor who overstayed his role. But she had no idea what I'd just done earlier that day. What email I had sent. What message I left her boss. What letter I placed inside her luggage before she even noticed it was gone. And by the time she opened it, it would already be too late. I didn't sleep that night. I drove until the gas light came on, pulled into a 24-hour diner, and ordered a coffee I didn't drink. My phone buzzed a few times, Ray once. Then my brother, Miles, probably confused why I missed game night. I didn't reply. The truth felt radioactive in my chest. Like touching it too soon would burn everything down. But I kept replaying her face when she saw the ring. Not devastated, not furious, just puzzled. As if I was the one who broke a routine she thought I'd never question. But that routine died long before I removed that ring. She just didn't notice the funeral. What she also didn't notice was that her carry-on, the one she always left half-zipped in the closet for weekend trips, had been repacked. She was supposed to fly to a wellness retreat the following morning, except her destination wasn't a spa. It was Lucas's lake house, a 2-hour flight and a world away from honesty. Before I left the house, I slid a typed letter inside the inner lining of her bag, not addressed to her, addressed to Lucas's fiancée. Her name was Erin. She had no clue Ray even existed. But thanks to a few days of amateur sleuthing and a forgotten receipt in Ray's car, I found her on LinkedIn, wrote her a message, told her everything. No bitterness, no drama, just the screenshots, the dates, the receipts, the truth. And then I printed the same thing, folded it neatly, and tucked it between Ray's silk robe and a travel-sized bottle of perfume I'd never seen before. That way, even if Erin never saw the email, she'd read it the moment she unzipped that bag. I didn't want revenge. I wanted the lies to end. And maybe I wanted someone else to feel what I had felt for months. The quiet implosion of trust. I drove back into town by sunrise. She was still home, shower running, suitcase by the door. But something in me shifted when I saw her emerge in a white dress, twirling once in front of the mirror like she was auditioning for a new life. I realized something then. She thought this would be a clean exit, a graceful transition. But what she didn't know was that honesty had already boarded her flight, and it was sitting in first class. By the time her ride pulled up, I was parked half a block away, hidden behind a row of delivery trucks. I don't know why I stayed to watch her leave. Maybe some broken part of me hoped she'd turn around. Maybe I wanted her to pause, to hesitate, to realize she was abandoning more than just our marriage. But she didn't. Ray tossed her bag into the back seat, climbed in like she'd done it 100 times before, and vanished into the morning traffic like someone escaping a scene she never intended to revisit. I didn't cry. I felt strangely empty, like the pain had boiled over and left nothing but steam. Hours passed. I checked my phone obsessively, waiting to see if Erin would respond to the email. Nothing. Just silence. I wondered if she'd already found the letter in the bag, if her hands had trembled reading it the way mine did writing it. Then around 8:47 p.m., it happened. A message popped up from an unknown number. "Who are you?" No punctuation, just cold, direct curiosity. I replied, "Someone who thought they were alone. Now I know I'm not." 5 minutes passed. 10. Then, "I'm at the lake house. She's here. And now I know everything." My hands went ice cold. I didn't know what that meant. Was Ray still playing dumb? Was Erin confronting Lucas? Was I part of a scene I'd never witnessed but always wonder about? I asked if she was okay. No response. The next update didn't come through text. Came through Ray. She called me at 11:02 p.m. I stared at the screen for a while before answering. "Daryl," she said, her voice low, shaky. "Where are you?" I didn't answer. "You left your ring," she added, as if that was the headline. Not the lies. Not the betrayal. Not the fact that her boyfriend's fiancé had just uncovered the whole twisted truth. "You left your ring, and—" she trailed off. I waited. "And everything's ruined," she whispered. The phone went silent after that. She didn't hang up. She just stopped talking. And maybe that was the first honest thing she'd done in months. But it was too late, because this wasn't just about a marriage falling apart. It was about two strangers discovering they were both lied to, and one of them had just handed Ray the consequences she thought she'd never face. The next morning, I didn't hear from her. Not a single text. Not a missed call. Just digital silence where chaos should have lived. I kept refreshing my inbox, checking the number that Erin used, but there was nothing. It was like both of them had been swallowed whole by what happened at that lake house. And maybe they had. I imagined the moment Ray stepped through that door, suitcase in hand, lies in her throat, only to find Erin there instead of Lucas. I pictured the confusion on her face, quickly replaced by the sinking horror of realization. Ray wasn't used to consequences. She was used to control, to curating her truth and handing it out in small, rehearsed pieces. But this time, she walked into a story that wasn't hers to direct anymore. Around noon, I finally heard from someone, but it wasn't her. It was Erin. A short message, just 5 words. "You were right," she ran. That's all it said. But it told me everything. Ray had panicked, fled. Maybe denied it at first, maybe tried to twist it around like she always did. But the evidence was too solid, too real. She couldn't talk her way out this time. I replied, asking if she was okay. Erin said she was staying at a hotel, processing everything. She didn't want pity. She just wanted me to know that she understood now. that we were both victims of the same performance, just on opposite sides of the curtain. That night, Ray finally came back. Not home, just to the apartment. I heard her key in the door around 11:30 p.m. I didn't move. I was in the spare bedroom, lights off. She didn't call my name. I heard her heels click across the wood floor, then stop. She saw the empty living room, the clean counters, the absence of me, and still not a word. She just let out this sigh. Not grief, not remorse, just exhaustion, like she was tired of having to explain herself to people she never intended to hurt. She opened the fridge, stood there for a second, then closed it again. And then she sat, quietly, alone. For once, she wasn't performing. And I think that scared her more than being caught ever did. But neither of us had said the real thing yet. The truth was still hanging in the air, and the longer it stayed there, the heavier it got. I didn't come out of the spare room until late the next day. Not because I was asleep. I hadn't closed my eyes all night. But because I didn't know what I'd say if I saw her. It's strange how a person can live inches away from you and still feel like a ghost. I heard her rustling around all morning, opening drawers, closing them harder than needed, like slamming wood could erase guilt. When I finally walked out, she was at the table, pretending to read a book I'd never seen before. Ray looked up like she hadn't been holding her breath, like she hadn't rehearsed what she'd say the moment I appeared. "Daryl," she said gently, like she was reaching for the version of me she hadn't destroyed yet. "Can we talk?" I didn't answer right away. I just stood there, staring at her. Same woman, same eyes, but I felt nothing familiar. "It wasn't supposed to go that far," she added, her voice shaky. "I didn't plan to fall for someone else. It just happened." That line, "it just happened," hit me like a slap wearing gloves, soft but deliberate. "I trusted you," I said quietly, and somehow that felt worse than yelling. She nodded like she expected that line, like it was on page 2 of the confrontation script she'd prepared in her head. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she whispered. "You were always so good to me. Too good." And that's when I understood. She didn't regret the betrayal. She regretted the inconvenience of it being exposed. I asked her if she knew Aaron had been at the lake house. Her eyes flinched just a second, but enough to answer me. "She told me to leave," Ray admitted. "Didn't scream, didn't fight, just handed me the truth and said she was done." "Same," I said. She looked up, startled, as if I'd broken the script. That wasn't the line she expected. "You're done?" she asked, like the idea had never occurred to her that I'd be the one to walk away. "What about counseling? What about?" "You walked out a long time ago," I said. "I'm just finally catching up." She opened her mouth, then closed it. I grabbed my bag, already packed, already waiting. As I reached the door, she called after me. "Where will you go?" I paused for a breath. Someplace quiet, someplace honest. I left her there, surrounded by the wreckage she thought she could manage. But you can't manage truth. You can only face it, or let it bury you. I stayed at a cheap motel just outside the city. The kind of place where the ice machine is always broken and the hallway smells like microwave dinners and bleach. But it was quiet, and for the first time in months, no one lied to me there. I spent the first day staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out when exactly she stopped being my partner and started becoming a stranger. Maybe it wasn't a moment. Maybe it was erosion. A slow, silent wearing away of love until all that was left was the shape of something that used to exist. On the second night, she texted. Just one word. "Please." I didn't answer. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because I didn't know what I'd say. Sorry wasn't going to glue the pieces back together. Around 2 a.m., I got a second message, longer. I read the letter. "I know what you did. I deserved it. I just wanted you to know I'm not mad. I'm ashamed. If you ever want to talk, I'm here." I stared at that text until the screen dimmed. That was the first time she ever admitted fault without twisting it into a shared failure. But I also knew this was her pattern, to offer vulnerability just long enough to keep control. The next day, I walked down to the lake near the motel. There was a bench, cracked and weather-worn, with initials carved into it. I sat there for an hour before dialing a number I never thought I would. Erin picked up on the third ring. She sounded tired, not angry. "Hey," she said. Like we were old friends who understood pain in the same language. We talked for an hour. About Lucas, about Ray, about how betrayal has a way of making you doubt everything you thought was solid. And at the end of that call, she said something that stuck with me. "You're not the fool, Daryl. You were just the one who stayed real while everyone else played pretend." That night, I finally replied to Ray. I didn't say much, just that I hoped she would find a way to stop performing. That maybe one day she'd be honest. Not for anyone else, but for herself. She responded with, "You always deserved more than I gave you." It was the right sentence, just delivered to the wrong version of me. Because the man who once waited by the window, wondering if she'd come home, didn't exist anymore. 3 months later, I didn't recognize my own reflection, and I mean that in the best possible way. The man who stood in that mirror wasn't wounded or waiting anymore. He didn't live in silence or sleep beside betrayal. He'd stopped looking for answers in people who only ever gave half-truths. After everything fell apart, I started going to this little community center downtown, not to talk about my marriage, but to volunteer, fixing things, painting, sorting food donations. There was something healing about using my hands again, doing something that had nothing to do with her. That's where I met Elise. Not in some dramatic, movie-ending kind of way, just two people folding boxes in the same corner. She asked why I taped every box twice. I said, "Because some things break too easily." She smiled like she understood that wasn't really about cardboard. We became friends. Then more. Slowly, carefully, respectfully. Elise wasn't a replacement. She didn't have to be. She met me where I was, and helped me see that being soft wasn't a flaw. It was the very thing that saved me. Ray eventually sent one last message. A photo of the ring. She said she kept it on her windowsill because it reminded her of the version of herself she wished she hadn't destroyed. I didn't reply, not out of anger, but because I had nothing left to prove. I'd already moved forward. She stayed in the past. And maybe that's the truest ending. Not the dramatic goodbye, but the quiet choice to build something better. So, to anyone listening, you can survive the moment you think will break you. And on the other side, there might be something softer, stronger, and more honest than what you lost. You just have to walk through the silence to find it.